Apocalyptic settings and zombie-infested games became two of the biggest draw points during gaming's seventh generation, thanks most in part to the success of the Left 4 Dead series. Techland, the developers mostly known for the Call of Juarez series, threw their names in the hat when it came to the zombie-based multiplayer experience with Dead Island. Dead Island was mostly a success thanks to the jump-in, jump-out multiplayer structure, a large open world, and weapons crafting. A sequel was released almost 2 years later but didn't garner the same praise as its predecessor, mostly thanks to the lack of innovation compared to the original and glitches that would make Bethesda Studios blush. With Deep Silver purchasing the rights to the franchise, Techland ventured out to create something different, while retaining the idea of how the genre could evolve. Thanks to the power of the 8th generation consoles and a focus on parkour, Dying Light entered the world with more buzz than either Dead Island game. I enjoyed the first Dead Island, loathed the pseudo-sequel Dead Island Riptide, and was excited to see if Dying Light could restore my faith in the people who believed they could take the zombie genre to the next level. What began as a Dead Island sequel turned into something that could shift the zombies genre. Dying Light, similar to the Dead Island games, is set in a fictional island city, in this case Haran. Shortly before the game's version of the Olympics occurred in Haran, an outbreak turned the majority of the island's civilians and tourists into killer zombies. Players take the helm as Kyle Crane, an agent for the global relief effort that believes he can help find a cure through his athletic skills, gift of gab, and proficiency in hand-to-hand combat. For players of the original Dead Island games, Dying Light feels incredibly familiar and a natural progression to what the aforementioned franchise needed following Riptide. Like its spiritual predecessors, Dying Light starts off slow, but eventually ramps up the craziness with bigger and badder enemies, more dangerous environments, and a grappling hook. Due to the core gameplay, Dying Light rightfully encourages a player to take part in the various activities scattered throughout the world, while playing through the story. Thankfully, most of these events, side quests, and activities bring forth trophies and achievements, giving the player a reason to try almost everything, since the majority of these challenges don't reach the depths of fostering frustration. Not only did I finish the story, I attained every possible trophy a person could without a human teammate. Who knows, maybe one day I'll find some people eager to help me get those trophies as well. One can't help but immediately mention how similar, for better and for worse, the game is compared to the Dead Island games. But Techland would have been pretty stupid to abandon an engine that was mostly functional and only needed a few tweaks here and there to make it perfect as possible. Hit detection is a lot better compared to the Dead Island games. Glitches, though still apparent, are few and far between, and never appear to be game-breaking. The ability to craft the nastiest weapons imaginable for the zombie apocalypse is still exhilarating. But what makes Dying Light different from the games that helped craft this one are two specific additions to the core gameplay mechanics: parkour and a day and night cycle. Rather than be stuck with characters who are only able to run and jump maybe a good 2 feet into the air like the Dead Island leads, Dying Light's protagonist is a skilled runner and jumper, able to sail across rooftops and clutch the sides of cliffs with ease. Oh, and there's the grappling hook. Seriously, it's one of the most fun aspects of the game, hands down. Being able to zip across areas in a flash takes away a lot of the busy work that, at times, comes from trying to move across such a sizable world. The land of Haran is not Grand Theft Auto 5 big, or even infamous Second Son big, but Haran is large enough that an item like the grappling hook is a welcome addition and gives the player a reason to explore just to see what works and what doesn't. Tying into the parkour and grappling hook is the game's day and night cycle that is exactly what it sounds like. After a few missions, the game introduces this staple in the open world genre, though it was something that the Dead Island games didn't have, where the infected are given a boost of energy and powers thanks to the setting sun. Players who aren't in or near a safe house at night are forced to come face to face with jacked up enemies such as the volatiles. Thanks to a mix of mostly precise parkour, a heightened attention from the juggernaut-like enemies, and a fear of death, playing during the in-game nighttime is exponentially fun and rewarding, with the latter thanks to the double skill points being issued out at night. But the cycle definitely isn't set at a 1-to-1 ratio, so the player is given more chance to explore the land with a little more freedom under the sun rather than running for his or her life in the dark. Some aspects taken from the Dead Island games and utilized in Dying Light have also been improved. Players still have to find blueprints and items to craft special weapons in the game, but now they don't have to wander around looking for workbenches to repair their favorite tools of destruction. If a person has picked up a specific item mostly found anywhere in Haran, they can do a quick repair job in real time by simply hitting one button. The action has proven to be a literal lifesaver for me during situations where one weapon works specifically well against mounting adversaries. The skill tree, the reason for those double points during nightly adventures, returns, but in a more simplified manner, featuring fewer yet more effective options for each proverbial skill tree branch, including power, agility, and survivor. Almost every skill strengthens Crane and adds another aspect to the gameplay, but not everything works exceptionally well as one would expect from a game of this magnitude. The parkour platforming can be a tad sensitive at times, with Crane only attaching himself to the nearest objects, even if the camera isn't pointed in that specific direction. Combat, while a lot better compared to the Dead Island games, is still rough around the edges. Human enemies have a penchant for dodging melee strikes with the greatest of ease while having infinite stamina, something Crane cannot do and does not have respectively. During these situations where guns are involved, the action takes a severe dip as the gunplay can feel a tad imprecise and even sluggish when trying to whip the character around to see who's hitting Crane, which isn't good because there are quite a few firefights late in the game. There's also a problem with the game's difficulty level in the early hours. With few weapons at Crane's disposal as well as abilities and health, the probability of dying frequently is higher than it was in Dead Island, a game that also had this too hard, too early problem. On the other end of the spectrum, 2/3 into the game, Crane almost becomes godlike if the player has been continuously upgrading weapons and skills. The initial fear that causes the player to run and hide rather than fight in the game's early hours is replaced with the belief that no matter what he or she encounters, Crane won't die. I actually had more trouble staying alive from traversing buildings during the latter half of the game, and having Crane plunge to his death due to a misstep more than any infected killing him. Then there's the narrative. The opening minutes are prototypical, but seem to have the makings of being something a lot better than Dead Island or Dead Island Riptide's plot. Sadly, the streak of subpar zombie game stories continues with Dying Light. All of your favorite zombie genre cliches are here. Superheroine turns into a damsel in distress. Government is not working toward the best interests of its people. Main antagonist is a charismatic sociopath. The main character is looked upon as less of a man in the opinions of others until he proves himself by going out of his way to help random people who only provide him with useless information and/or weapons. Techland reps stated that they wanted to provide a mature story in the Dead Island franchise that would be different from anything else on the market. They tried to continue that with Dying Light. Well, they waited a little too long because Far Cry 3 presented a lot of the story elements, cliché characters, and talking points 2 years prior. Dying Light's narrative is essentially Far Cry 3 with zombies instead of man-eating sharks. And that's not even mentioning a majority of the quests, both story and side, are long-winded fetch missions where Crane has to go here, get this in return, and reward. And don't worry about keeping track of funds. There's really no reason to buy anything in this game, as some of the best items are either made or found. Animation isn't this game's strongest suit either. While Haran looks absolutely gorgeous, especially when Crane moves from a shanty town to the Assassin's Creed-esque area of Haran, the character models leave a lot to be desired. A majority of the models look like someone scanned one of those learn how to draw people books and shaded in the results on a computer. Add that to the fact at times the voice and mouth synchronization will be totally off, with lips flapping and no sound or vice versa. One of the most disappointing aspects from a creative standpoint is the monster infected design. Those who have played the Dead Island games will recognize Techland didn't go out of his way to make a group of unique creatures compared to the ones found in their previous zombie games. The most obvious examples are the acid-spitting toad, which is just like the floater from Island, and the bomber that explodes if you get too close, becoming a living landmine and a guaranteed death for Crane, just like the Island's suicider. The few unique enemies simply replace some of Dead Island's most infamous adversaries without being impressive, like the slow-moving, super sledgehammer-carrying goon or miner, whose sledgehammer range is terribly unpredictable and easily downed by throwing items like Molotovs. One of the few baddies that stand out is the hazmat suit wearing infected. Thanks to an oxygen tank strapped to their backs, these enemies can become propelled grenades if a person ruptures the tank and sends them flying in the direction of a dangerous horde. Though multiplayer is functional, one of the most innovative modes featured in the game is outside of the campaign, Be the Zombie. In this mode, players can invade another person's open game and start a session of killing as the Night Hunter. But the players that are competing against the Night Hunter have to destroy nests before all the human players get killed. Be the Zombie is an interesting twist on the multiplayer aspect of the game. It provides a lot of fun, though it gets a little repetitive after a while. Thankfully, post-release patches have fixed what was once an unplayable mode. So if you ever feel like killing humans instead of zombies in Dying Light, Be the Zombie mode is perfect for you. Dying Light is truly a mixed bag of potential, both realized and unfulfilled. Though Dying Light is obviously a heavily flawed game, it is one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had since owning a PlayStation 4. The parkour is incredibly exhilarating, if a little finicky at times. The combat is brutal, if a little stiff, and not as fluid as one would expect from an apparent parkour master like Crane. Be the Zombie mode is fun when you can get it to work. According to those who have spent a majority of their time playing co-op in this game, it works so much better as a multiplayer experience than going alone. While Techland didn't innovate when it comes to the story and quest, they did deliver a quality game that's worth your time, even if it does feature one of the worst final boss battles of this generation thus far. I'm excited to see how much they improve with Dying Light 2, because they've created a solid foundation of gameplay that just doesn't get old.
All right. Kill him.